just want to kind of randomly jump into this topic of, first of all, art, and how art is essentially this multi-dimensional tool. So I mean, it's great for therapy in the sense that it can help ground you, help you feel more into your experience just by putting a little bit of attention inward, and then connecting with the process of just applying paint and all that. Or when you get down to it, it's helping you express emotion. It's getting into this emotional brain. It's bypassing the logical mind usually, and that in turn will provide this opportunity to just connect directly with how you're feeling, even if it's not really abundantly clear to you at the time. And then where that starts to get really interesting, if you ask me, is when you start to look at the spiritual component of painting and connecting with art in general, really. Particularly painting, but I think all art. So where does painting stop being just a physical process where you're connecting with your mind and maybe starts to kind of transcend into the more spiritual realm? And let's dive right in. I think it's a interesting experience when you paint something and you don't know where it came from. So you just kind of, maybe you did psychedelics, maybe not. Maybe you just sort of did a lot of other fun stuff and you're just sitting down and feeling very inspired, and it just flows, and you're not adhering to your own sort of logical mind or critic telling you how to move, or you're not trying to adhere to symbols necessarily. You're just allowing all of that expression to be in its sort of purest, rawest form. And then after the fact, it turns out there was a bit of a process. There was a bit of there was this capacity for interpretation, but you weren't the one really writing that script, so to speak. You were just sort of on the editing side of it, or maybe just sort of doing some sort of after the fact role. You're playing some sort of role, but you're not the one writing the script. You're just the one, I guess, taking part in the performance, but I think there's a better metaphor I can't just quite think of right now. So here you are, painted something, and it's connected with something higher. And I've been taking this course. It's called Inner Schooling, and it's all about using the Jungian perspective of connecting with like alchemy, connecting with any form of higher divinity that wants to communicate with you, and finding ways to sort of allow it in throughout that unconscious process of attuning to the creative self, or the higher self. And so far it's been a very, very interesting experience. A lot of lectures, a lot of philosophy, but I don't think it necessarily needs to get in all that for you to have a spiritual experience. It's not like there's a prerequisite that you have to read some philosophy text to connect into that deeper part of yourself, or that higher plane of existence, however you want to sort of frame it. I think there's this capacity where it relies on your spiritual openness. It relies on where you're at with your overall expression and flow. And maybe there's a bit of a process that would help you enter those other areas more efficiently or fluently. I could see that's realistically the purpose of expressive art therapy. So connecting all these different areas of expression. I like there's this sort of model that comes into play in expressive arts therapy. It's a form of therapy where there's this spiral, and it's kind of like mapping the communication between you and the collective unconscious, which is kind of like the source, and the source of all creative energy, the source of all thought, the source of all sort of spiritual channeling. And it starts with you doing some sort of specific creative expression, like could be movement, could be writing a poem. And then from there, you're now beginning to reach out into the void, so to speak. You're reaching out into the collective unconscious, and it's giving you something back. And you're taking that and you're rolling with it and you're flowing through, and you're taking that and moving through the next loop of the spiral. And through that, you're continuing the momentum where you're allowing yourself to re-enter into the void again, and coming out with something new, coming out with the next sort of dimension of that expression. So this is where you can see the connection of meditation being helpful for reaching certain, just say, actualized states or spiritually aware states where you are susceptible to paint or draw something that in turn allows you to feel a certain way, and that allows you to move a certain way, and that movement allows you to whatever, do something else expressive, and they all just sort of feed into each other and synergize and create a kind of momentum. And music is clearly a part of that process. So you're going to create music as the result of these energies not being stagnated and allowing them to sort of flow through that spiral into the next phase of expression. And I mean, I wasn't planning on getting into that specific area, but just to kind of give a bit of an overview of what expressive art therapy looks like for me and how it might show up in my counseling practice eventually as I get to it. But then there's just this awesome idea of when you paint something, it's just projecting almost blindly some sort of archetype. Like there's a symbol, there's something that's just being put into physical form, and it's a part of you, but it's not just a part of you, it's a part of you connecting and tethering with source, which is, I can't really say whether it's you're connecting with directly with source, I'm just guessing at this point, or the higher self is kind of taking something and then allowing you to see source through that process. It's kind of like a tool or an intermediary of sorts. So kind of what art is like for me, I guess, when I'm not in my fucking head and really not being as playful as I want to be, I guess. Like that's like, ooh, that's a bit of a left turn from that discussion, but yeah, how can you find a way to incorporate the inner child and to get back into that playfulness? So whereas it's a left turn, this is definitely related to all of these concepts. So first of all, the higher self, as according to the inner schooling Jungian study of expression through art, it is the inner child finally speaking through you. So the inner child is like more spiritually enlightened than your adult self. But then there's also this idea in expressive arts therapy where it's like really need to enact that playfulness. So then the ability to express joy and to sort of like channel and tap into that excitement, that playfulness, that energy. That's part of the reason that you're dancing and moving and flailing, and then allowing yourself to play with color, play with music, play like the emphasis on play. So yeah, how do you maybe just have like introduce a bit of an awareness to like how you start your creative process? Is there a ritual you do? Is there a degree to which you feel like you've kind of got to that place where the adult or the logic or the critical mind is kind of, taken the reins and it's been there for a while? And what might the inner child say to that choice, that decision, when you're making some sort of critical decision within your painting, or you're making some sort of critical decision within your music writing, or you're writing a poem and you feel like you're like, no, I need to do this. Maybe the inner child's speaking to that. Maybe they're putting their foot down. Maybe they're having a tantrum. But maybe it feels like it's more likely that that direction, that control, I need to do this sort of voice, it is not the inner child. Like they're the I guess maybe the ego coming in and trying to become gratified through means of enforcement, and not through means of like loving, playful expression. I mean, just sort of sit with that loving, playful expression, and it's almost like there should be, maybe I'll introduce a mantra to when you're doing something expressive or creative, and you're like, am I doing this with love? Am I doing this with playfulness or a playful nature? Am I doing this with joy? Am I doing this? Or, you know, why am I doing this? So, just a sort of free flow discussion about art. I feel like there's got to be one more little thing. Yeah, the last little piece. Appreciation of art. How does art really speak to you on a spiritual level? What's so special? What is it that's so special about that moment when it's you and another person, and you're entering some portal into this landscape, and you're like, if I don't know if any of you have been to the Van Gogh exhibit, but there's an interesting sort of multi-dimensional experience. So you're not just entering, you know, a visual experience along with the audio and all that. There's this, like, they're trying to kind of like take you inside the mind or inside the life or inside the soul on some level of this artist. So one could say that the ultimate purpose of connecting with art in this sort of spiritual way would be in part to connect through their soul and see how their soul experienced the world and experienced some sort of concept. Now, mind you, this is not the only way. I believe you could have a spiritual experience through art in a variety of ways, using, say, the archetypes, using the symbolism, the alchemical process. That's kind of more the route of the Carl Jung-based art therapy program I'm involved in. But it's one and the same. It's just maybe taking it to another place, another dimension, or I guess I haven't thought enough about how this program is attempting to open my perspective up to all these different spiritual dimensions or domains that operate with the universe as a whole versus maybe just the individual one-on-one interaction with you and the artist, which I was kind of speaking to. How does the spiritual experience transcend just the two souls? How does it start to kind of become more expansive and engaging and ripple out to become a sort of energetic entity in itself? Like, how do you reach that scale? But art's done it, you know. The zeitgeist, really, it's like this like living, breathing entity that sort of transcends time, immortalizes the artist through their sort of domain in the collective unconscious, right? So that's another discussion for another time, whether the collective unconscious and art and archetypes sort of being portrayed, I guess art being portrayals of all these archetypes. So does that mean, like, you know, artists are really creating as much as they're sort of channeling? I think that's another talk for another time, but just some thoughts on art, and be well.